So the next guy I'm going to get into, Hitman, is Odell Beckham Jr. Not a ton to talk about Odell, which is quite the fall from grace for somebody who was an elite wide receiver for fantasy football just a couple of years ago. I think he's almost kind of being written off for somebody who had that kind of, he was on that tier of our fantasy hierarchies for the wide receiver position going in the first rounds, much like we see Michael Thomas kind of deal. The Browns obviously run one of those run-heavy offenses, kind of like what Shanny's doing. But I think with Stefanski, that's just his offense. So I don't think that's necessarily going to change a whole lot, especially with Baker at the helm. And if you look at Odell's contract, he's going to save them $15 million in the next 2 years if they cut him. So I'm curious. Do you
have the dead cap number in front of you?
0 the next 2 years at $15 million. Yeah.
We have him in our dynasty pass. I had written him up as a potential cap casualty. I couldn't remember it was that low. Goodness.
For sure. And so, we could see Odell going to a new team. I'm curious what you think, Hitman, about his potential if he were to stay with the Browns, and then what you think he can be still for fantasy if he were to say go to a more pass heavy offense.
Yeah, he's being talked about a lot for potential. Maybe they cut him, maybe they trade him. We did. Let's see, what we had 6 full games of Odell Beckham, and 2 games you were happy. 2 games you were very happy that you started him. The other ones, though, very, very disappointed. Sure. I will say that watching this team. They are a run-heavy team, and Stefanski ran a run-heavy team up in his short stint in Minnesota, and you still had value. You still had value at the wide receiver position. Minnesota's still a run-heavy team. But they're good, and you have value at the wide receiver position. So I'm not scared off by the term run-heavy as long as they're good. That's just what it comes down to. Is the offense good? They're run-heavy. Fine, whatever. Wide receivers are still going to get theirs. They might be a little bit more inconsistent, but they're going to get theirs more often than they won't. And Baker Mayfield was definitely better in the second half of the season. Baker Mayfield at the beginning of the year, they were winning, but it was,
yikes.
Hey, Baker, you
despite
look like,
him.
Yes, you look, the team is winning because they're running so well. Baker sucks. He is what he was in his second year in the league. And then he was in a brand new scheme. Like how many offensive coordinator changes has Baker Mayfield had to deal with in coaching changes? Like that those are mental things that us common folk are like, hey, you just learn a new playbook. I've read books. It's real easy. You just learn it and you memorize everything. You have no clue how difficult it is to learn a completely brand new offense. And it takes we just talked about Bruce Arians. The first year he was here with the Arizona Cardinals, they were terrible. Carson Palmer, I think, threw his career high in interceptions. And then it clicked because the second year he was more familiar with the system. But the second half of the season, once they got past all those insane weather games, Baker was clearly a better, more confident quarterback. So I have some faith in Odell. The question is his body. I don't want to label anybody injury prone, but the dude's been hurt now for 4 straight years.
Yeah.
His body doesn't seem like it wants to play football. This year was a freak accident. It's kind of been a freak accident every single time. So maybe he just peed in the wrong fountain. I don't know, and he got hit with some dose of a curse. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what happened to Odell Beckham where he's cursed with these bad injuries. I do still believe that he is a good wide receiver. Maybe he's not elite anymore, but I think that he's going to be drafted accordingly this year. I think that
you're right.
That the fantasy football community we have had enough of Baker hype and Baker shenanigans, so he'll be drafted appropriately, probably as like a 5th round wide receiver. And at that point, yes, yeah, a 5th-round wide receiver who I've seen dominate and be number 1 overall. Yeah, I'll take the chance then. I don't have
Yeah.
to leverage one of my high value picks in the draft for him anymore.
And that's bearing out too. I was just checking actually in a recent startup that I had, and I got Odell as my wide receiver 2 at the back of the 7th round. So I think that's really good value for the player that he
is
can be, right?
absurd.
Yeah.
Like, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going in the
Absolutely,
7th
absolutely.
round? A bunch of dudes who suck.
Especially that has the upside that he does, right? And I think the main takeaway from what you were saying there is that you don't have to shy away from these run heavy teams, because I think what we saw with the Vikings with Justin Jefferson and Thielen, those guys are the funnel. That's it. Those are the guys that are getting the targets, and you know it, so you can rely on that. And I think we could see something similar in Cleveland if Odell were to stay, because the only other real target competition that they have is Hooper and then maybe Kareem Hunt. But Kareem Hunt, even he is getting a lot of his work done in the red zone as a runner, not necessarily those high target totals. So I think this could be something similar. So like I said, that's like 7th round value. I'm definitely in on Odell. I think he's 28 now, so he could have a couple years left as long as those bones hold up.